The Thunder delivered the first NBA championship to Oklahoma City. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was excellent in Game 7. 29 points, 5 rebounds, 12 assists. His co-star Jalen Williams goes for 20, and OKC defeats a Tyrese Haliburton-less Pacers squad to win the NBA title 103-91. OKC scored 32 points off of 23 Pacer turnovers. This game appeared over in the third quarter, which is where the Thunder did their damage all season long. They outscored the Pacers in the third in Game 7, 34-20. And Oklahoma City champions in the 2025 season. Back here with Chris Walker and Roy Hibbert. Roy, as a former Pacer, how you feeling right now?
You know, I do feel down about the team, but I don't want to take anything away from OKC. Obviously, they played great. We'll get into that, but a very tough pill to swallow when you've overcome so many deficits over the playoff series and come back and have one of your best players go down. But the Pacers team did not stop playing. They kept going until like the last minute or two into the game until they cleared the bench. But this OKC team was dominant all season. They learned to adjust. SGA was great. Caruso was great, the defensive end. I know we'll get more into that, but still reeling from that.
If Tyrese plays, is it a different result?
Yeah, I think that he was heating up. I think it was 10 minutes left in the game. In the first quarter, he came out. He hit what, 2 or 3 threes at that point. I think he was just getting started, but that shoulda, coulda, woulda. This is a different timeline out there, some Marvel timeline where he did not get hurt and he was able to play and we were able to win. But this OKC team was great.
Yeah, OKC, again, the culmination of a fantastic season. You got to give them credit. The story on the other side was the Pacers and the way they came back and the drama and the moment and Tyrese Haliburton with the injury and is he a superstar? All those things gave the finals some zest because everyone thought it was a foregone conclusion that OKC would win it. Again, give them credit and give their organization credit. Just meant, you hear the announcer. 3 years ago, they won 24 games.
Yep.
And here's where they are. We talked about, you look at what's going around the NBA, the Durant trade and Luka, and everybody's posturing and positioning to get superstars. And here is a team that's doing it the right way, doing it through the draft, made some key trades. SGA started out as a Clipper, and look where he is. And then you got Hartenstein, you got Caruso. They've done some terrific things, and obviously Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren were draft picks, and they've just built it the right way. And guess what else? They got a ton of draft picks, first-round picks in the future. So shout out to OKC. And here's the thing, I'll say this, and not to take shots at other superstars, but it's not like OKC is a destination for free agents. It's not in a major market, but yet look what they've been able to do. And I'll give Kevin Pritchard credit as well, what he did with Indiana. It's just unfortunate that Tyrese went down, so we'll never know. This game lost, to me, it lost its whatever fire that it had when he got hurt for me. And it was, again, once that happened, I thought OKC would get it done.
Yeah, it's tough to overcome an injury like that to your superstar. The Oklahoma City Thunder finished with 84 wins, most wins by an NBA champion since the 1996-97 Bulls. And you look, Chris, at what we talked about throughout this series was turnovers.
Yeah.
OKC scored 32 points off of 23 Pacer turnovers. You got to take care of the basketball, especially in a Game 7, whether or not Tyrese Haliburton is on the floor.
I mean, it was topsy-turvy. It was the story of this finals. You never see NBA teams turn it over like that. Obviously, that is what, shall I say, the Thunder's calling card is, to turn you over, to score more points and create more possessions, offense, with their defense. But Indiana did it to them as well. And going on the road was not going to be easy for the Pacers. And I thought, hey, if they don't turn the ball over, what was the key for both teams? The key for both teams was not to turn the basketball over, and they certainly got after him. It was a physical game. I thought the refs let them get after him. And when you do that, I mean, playing at OKC, it's just going to be hard. But here's the thing. The Pacers were winning at halftime.
They were.
You got to give them credit, but that third quarter, without Haliburton, here's what I'll say. Haliburton, and people can say, oh, he was, soft, he was this, but he's a facilitator. He takes pressure off. Obi Toppin and Turner, they were awful. They didn't even, it was APB out for them. They didn't even show up, but it's because Haliburton is the one that moves the basketball and can find them, where McConnell is more of a downhill scorer. So a lot of things could have gone a little bit different for the Pacers, but at the end of the day, OKC got it done.
The MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, bounces back. He had 8 turnovers in Game 6. He goes for 29 points, 12 assists, 5 rebounds. And Roy, we talked pregame. You called out Chet Holmgren to have a good game, and he had himself a good game. He had 5 blocks. That's the most blocks in a Game 7 of the NBA Finals since blocks were tracked in 1974. What did you see out of Chet that he was able to get good looks and able to play so well defensively?
Well, I think he slowed down, took his shots, the opportunities. I would like to see him make more free throws when he gets to the free throw line. But I think on the defensive end, you know, when Hartenstein wasn't in there, he made an impact. He made himself known, whether it's protecting the rim, block shots. And then I also say I kind of hold big guys to a high regard who can guard at the rim, but then also be up on the drop and be able to like block shots after shots outside the paint. So he's able to use his mobility around the rim, around the paint, around the perimeter to get shots, and he definitely brought the pressure. You know, the defense for OKC was great. That was good, but he also did a good job on the offensive boards. It was every time Indiana tried to make a run, you would see Lou Dort or Chet Holmgren grab an offensive rebound and get a foul, and they were able to get more possessions than my Pacers were able to do. So he stepped up to the challenge today. He played well. This is a good stepping stone for him. Hopefully he can continue to get some, you know, a little bit more strength, I would feel like, and then be a little bit more confident with his three-point shot, because I really don't see the OKC Thunder going anywhere in the West. They're such a good team. They're proven. Their track record. They're young. You know, I look at Denver. You know, they've won a championship before, but they've gotten older and older and older. This team is going to be around for a while.
Yeah, I think they are too. And I'll say this about Chet Holmgren: a year and a half in the league, basically from being injured, often injured, shall I say, but 50 games this year he missed, and look what happened. He was the difference. And again, it all comes down to matchups for me, and I think that Rick Carlisle's done a terrific job this series of making adjustments. But when you have guys that don't come out and give it up for you, and I don't like to finger point or blame people, but Toppin and Miles Turner gave them road. So again, it's hard to win.
6, yeah, but you're right. You got to do it here.
But this was the clinching game on the road that you needed, and they were just shaky, defensively shaky, with the ball shaky, you know, and it's a shame, because no matter what, if Haliburton was in the game or not, as I said before, they were only down 1, and I said, you know what, forget about the first half. Those guys didn't play, you know, at all. Now you got 24 minutes, shake it off, no Haliburton, forget about it. He's not going to be in the game. But you still have an opportunity. And those guys were getting offensive rebounds after offensive rebounds, and that really set the tone. You can talk to turnovers all you want. It was the second shots, the offensive rebound, how they were out-rebounding, out-hustling them. That really set the tone for the second half, and I just think Toppin and Turner, this may be the last hurrah for him in Indiana. I don't know how you feel about that, Roy.
No, I'm not going to go there. He got my butt up out of there. He's the longest tenured Pacer there. But I want to add to what you said as well. What compounded the Pacers' problem when they were trying to come back also was the fouls. Aaron Nesmith and Nembhard, they got to do a better job this summer of just being able to guard, not have their hands. I'll get the double shot right. Not get the hands in the cookie jar right here and look at the referee like, what are you doing? You cannot touch people when they're driving to the rim, especially SGA. And those fouls by, you know, Nembhard and Nesmith, 6 fouls, he fouled out. We need him on the court. He can hit threes, but the defense has to be a little bit more polished towards the end of the shot clock. I've been saying that all series long. You cannot play good defense for the first 20 seconds, and then the last 4 seconds, you bail the OKC out and send them to the free throw line.
They had to be perfect. They had to be perfect. That's why I'm jumping on Turner and Toppin. I was like, okay, Haliburton's out of the game. You guys are up 1. You got to be perfect.
Got to step
T.J.
up.
McConnell did his job. Pascal was okay. And Ben Mathurin, a lot of those points he got, you know, they were just empty buckets. But I thought he was another guy. And what happens is, and again, as a coach, I can see Rick Carlisle saying, okay, these guys don't have it. I got to try anything. So it looks like they're just disjointed. But you got to give OKC Thunder credit. And Cason Waller was just like, he was just everywhere on every single person. He just changed the tone of the game with his defense. And the last thing I'll say about SGA,
named Finals MVP.
Oh, of course he was going to be the Finals MVP with his. But in this game, you allowed him to make assists. You allowed him, they're at home, force him to make every shot. Even though he had a lot of points, he was terrible from the field. His shooting percentage wasn't great. So what I'm saying is, I think they got away from their game plan, but it's because they're playing so many different people. They got a little bit disjointed, and being on the road and losing Tyrese. That was a lot to overcome for the Pacers tonight.
Roy, what can you say about SGA? He becomes the 4th player to win the scoring title, NBA MVP, and the Finals MVP in the same season all time. He joins Kareem, Jordan, and Shaq. And that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, his aura farming has been great so far. I think he's a calm, cool, collected alpha out there that likes to share, distribute the ball. Like 10+ assists. I love it when the star player just doesn't go one-on-one. And there were some stretches in the game where he went one-on-one, and I felt like he said in the back of his mind, I'm getting this Finals MVP. I need this as an accolade. But he distributed the ball. He plays defense. He gets steals. He gets some blocks. And it's trickle-down effect from everybody else. And I know I'm not talking, you want me to talk about SGA, but I have to talk about Alex Caruso. 10 points off the bench. He was so solid defensively, getting tips, getting steals. I think every team needs to look at being able to bring in a wing player who is a little bit older and has that like toughness to come off the bench. So it's not just a young man's league anymore. But SGA was great, and Caruso played well as well.
You know, and it was Josh Giddey that they had, that they moved on to get Caruso. Hardest times with the Knicks. So give the GMs credit. You know, if people always talk,
shouts to Sam Presti.
And people always talk about it's a player-driven league, right? You know, LeBron wants this guy, KD moving over here. You know, there's something to be said, as I said, about lineup optimization and looking at your team and saying, okay, collectively, we have stars. What will it take to make this locker room move in the right direction for us to take the next step? So, you know, you can say that, they can say, well, these guys don't know what they're doing. Analytics, that doesn't matter. There is an art to this. And a lot of people should look at the algorithm or the formula that SGA and Sam Presti and Mark Daigneault and these guys, let me think about it. Mark Daigneault, young coach, you know, and you mentioned the other day about this time, you know, when it was the 7th game where all these people were.
Yeah.
And look where they are now.
He's in the G League.
He's in the G League.
The last time there was a Game 7 in the NBA
last time there was a Game 7. So, again, they've done it homegrown-wise, and they brought some pieces in. I just think that they're an exciting story for the NBA and a breath of fresh air where we're not just talking about the superstar, even though SGA is a superstar.
He was with the Clippers, and he comes to OKC and blossoms.
That's why you don't trade young talent for older players.
Right.
Look what the Clippers could have had, but you know what, Paul George, that's my man's though. But yeah, you know what happens. It happens.
It happens, and you know what happens? An NBA championship for Oklahoma City as they complete one of the greatest seasons in NBA history. SGA, what a season it was. Look at the names on this list. I mean, this is exclusive, elite company. Just the 4th player to win the scoring title, the NBA MVP, and Finals MVP in the same season. The first since Shaq. He also joins MJ and Kareem. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander leading the Thunder to an NBA title. Much more ahead when we continue here on CBS Sports HQ. Tyrese Haliburton goes down with an injury, with what his father is saying, an Achilles injury. The Pacers could not overcome it, and they come up short in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Keep it watched. Keep it locked. You're watching CBS Sports HQ as our coverage continues of the NBA Finals. The big news out of Game 7 of the NBA Finals was with 5 minutes to go in the first quarter when Tyrese Haliburton injured his right leg. His father saying it's an Achilles injury, wasn't putting any weight on his leg. He had been dealing with the calf issue throughout the series, suffered the right calf strain in Game 5, ended up playing in Game 6. and then again in Game 7. And you're looking now at a timeline in terms of recovery from anywhere from 8 to 12 months, according to our injury analyst, Marty Jaramillo. All right, back here with the guys, Roy Hibbert, Chris Walker. Roy, when Tyrese Haliburton goes down, 5 minutes to play in the first quarter, it's as if the air in the building was let out. And I know they were on the road at the Paycom Center, but as sports fans, you hate to see injury. You do not want to, even as a champion, you don't want to say, hey, we beat you, and you guys were injured. Like, you want to beat a team with all their players on the floor. You don't want to beat a team that's banged up. And so for me, it's like I sit here and go, okay, yes, OKC can celebrate the title. I'm not going to take anything away from them. Yeah. But you know what you're feeling when the best player goes down. You're like, oh man. Yeah,
I mean, obviously, not taking anything away from OKC. Not going to make it like an asterisk like the bubble championship.
Absolutely.
Or anything like that.
He took a hit at you.
But it's always punching down whenever it can. But not a similar situation, but my Pacers team went through a situation where obviously we weren't in the finals, but we lost a guy in Paul George where he was in the Olympic trials, played a game, and went on a fast break, and then it broke his leg. His leg was almost like an L, almost. So I actually flew out to Vegas to go see him the day after he had his surgery. So that, I'm saying that to say that following year was very tough because we knew that we weren't going to have him around at all. I think he came back towards the end of the season for a couple games and a couple practices, but the whole team had to be like, all right, we need to step our games up and go out there and play as hard as we can and make up the difference that PG was going to miss. Unfortunately, myself, I didn't have that great of a season. They shipped me out right after that. But this team is going to have to make some serious decisions. What's going on? Miles Turner, I think he's up. He's making $19 or $20 million a year. I think TJ McConnell may have an opportunity to get extended. But you have to figure out, all right, what's the pros of extending these guys? Could we do it again 2 years from now? Or should we look at going in a different direction to bridge the gap until when Tyrese Haliburton does come back? So this summer is going to be an interesting summer, to say the least. But I'm not sure where the Pacers will be after this year. But it obviously is gut-wrenching. But again, they have some issues. I'm not sure if I even answered your question, but they have some issues they have to resolve.
They certainly do, but Kevin Pritchard did a masterful job of putting them into position that they put them in this year. All right, now, Haliburton, it will be out for next year. It won't be back. But you know what? You got McConnell and you have Nembhard, so you have support there. The question is, what are you going to do with Ben Mathurin? That's the question. I've heard some trade rumors for him, but maybe now that gets stifled because of Haliburton's injury, right? And you got to figure that out. Miles Turner, I mean, he's, again, 10 years is an eternity right now for any pro because of years. The NBA, the lifespan of the NBA player is so young now. I just don't see a guy in him. If you just want to keep him around like a James Johnson, just keep him around and, you know, be honorable. Hey, Miles, you're our guy. The question is how much you're going to pay him to keep him around. Because it just seems like he needs to move somewhere else, right? Because I don't think the fans will forget about what just happened in this finals because it just looked like he's just too old to play in this game anymore. You know, that's just what it looks like. Forget about what the stats. I'm looking at the game.
Yeah.
They won't even put him in the game. Think about it. You're a senior, tenured player on the team, and they won't put you in the game in a 7-game series in the NBA Finals. You don't even play in the fourth quarter. So that tells you that the way they think about the way you are, and they got to figure some things out inside with their front court. But I just don't see it. I would move on from Miles Turner. I would try to find some young length. Find out what you're going to do with Ben Mathurin. And again, you still have Toppin, you still have Siakam. You still have a chance to have an organization that can move forward in the NBA right now.
Roy, I want to play contrarian right now because what the Pacers did was incredible. They came back from 5 15-point deficits this postseason. They had a couple bounces go their way. They faced teams who dealt with injury. They were the benefactor of that. Why couldn't they even get back to this point next season? If you don't have Tyrese Haliburton and you have questions about your roster and you know that Cleveland is still out there, you know the Knicks are going to be out there when they figure out their head coach, like, why do you still believe that the Pacers are even going to be back in this position next year?
Well, I hope they could be, but to be honest with you, thinking as a front office guy, I would say maybe hold back, maybe pull back a little bit. Maybe let's see what that draft next year is talking about. Maybe we pull a little bit of a Sixers trust the process and maybe try to get a good draft pick to grow for the future. But they definitely need some scoring. And I know that there's a name that I have talked about before, Gary Trent Jr., who could be up. Maybe he can sign like a 1-2 year deal. He's a little bit older, not towards the end of his career, but he's instant offense. He can hit threes. He's aggressive. He has a green light besides that little mishap where he threw the ball went through his legs at the end of the, I think it was a game 6 or whatever it was, the first round against the Pacers. He played great. That's a name maybe that it can bring around. That's not a huge name that may lock them down in terms of their contract for years, but they need to find a way to bring some scoring and some good defense. I think they need to get both sides of the ball, because the defense from Nembhard and Neesmith fouling down the stretch, they got to fix that.
So, Chris, what about, you heard what Roy said, maybe potentially delaying any decisions to go get out a free agent. We've got free agents. You know that there's a pretty good free agent class coming up here that starts on June 30th. Is there a guy that you'd go out there and get? Is there a guy worth making a move to go get and pay? But then you're going to have to open up the pocketbook, and then you're looking at, you know, your roster as it constructs right now.
I mean, I just watched this, looking at it on screen. I think they have a pretty solid nucleus.
Okay.
I mean, clearly you're missing Haliburton, and you made it, the way you teed it up, you said, hey, you know, do they have a chance next year without? Well, when the Cleveland Cavaliers had injuries, it wasn't Donovan Mitchell. When the Knicks had, it wasn't Jalen Brunson. Those are very different injuries. Tyrese Haliburton is the straw that stirs the drink for the NFL. That's a very different injury. And maybe you have to say, instead of busting it up with the guys that you have that are solid guys under contract, next year you just may have to take an L and just wait and come the year after that. I don't believe in, as you said, trading away all those assets and guys that can help you win, and guys that have helped you win this year, to go get who? What young player you're going to bring in that's going to be better than a Neesmith that you got from Boston? That's why Kevin Pritchard's done a good job. I would work the free agency. There's not one player that comes to mind right now that I would want to give up assets for. Right? If there's some guy who's on an expiring contract, or some guy who wants to play for the minimum, that's different. But again, the question is, what do you do with Miles Turner? That is the question for me. And I know Roy wants to keep him, you know, because he's afraid of Pacer Nation being mad at you or whatever. But the way he played in this series, you know,
wasn't good enough.
Oh my goodness.
He would tell you that.
I would take a young, I mean, I wish I had a Daniel Gafford or someone, a younger, big body guard, I mean, a big body player that can be a little bit more agile. Again, you know, he did good and he did well in Game 6. But I'm saying, if you're trying to win, and I think, and here's the other thing, the East, I still believe, is wide open next year. I don't think the Pacers can win without Haliburton, but I think they can be competitive, though.
Well, as it currently stands right now, the Pacers do not have a first-round pick. They don't make a selection until the second round, 54th overall. You take a look at the top 10 free agents according to CBSSports.com. LeBron James not going anywhere, right, Chris?
None of those four. Miles Turner, that's the one. Fred VanVleet, nowhere. Naz Reid, that's questionable. Josh Giddey, you don't want. Kuminga's an interesting one. Malik Beasley's, again, old. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't see it. He is old.
I like that.
Malik Beasley. Being honest. Yeah, I'm just being honest. I'm looking at how about this? What moves the needle? The guys that you make can move the needle, you can't get. So why trade away the farm? You know, why give up a solid situation you may just have to suffer through next year until Haliburton gets back?
And you can find the complete list on CBSSports.com, and we will have wall-to-wall coverage of the NBA draft beginning on Wednesday night right here on CBS Sports HQ. Our coverage continues from Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Chet Holmgren, 5 blocks in Game 7. Alex Caruso coming over in a trade. Isaiah Hartenstein celebrating as SGA leads OKC to its first title since moving to town, and they are going to be celebrating in the streets. And I guess it turns out those buses were right